Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez had been watching the valley for 3 hours when she first spotted movement in the distant tree line. Her M24 sniper rifle rested steady against the rocky outcrop, its scope trained on the narrow mountain pass below where her unit would soon need to cross. The early morning mist clung to the Afghan mountainside like a gray blanket, making visibility difficult, but Maria had learned to read these mountains like a familiar book. She adjusted her position slightly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavier on her shoulders. Below in the valley, Alpha Company was preparing for what intelligence reports called a routine patrol through hostile territory. Maria knew better than to trust the word routine in this part of Helmand Province. Every mission here carried the potential for disaster, and today her sharp eyes and steady hands might be all that stood between her brothers and sisters in arms and an enemy ambush. The radio crackled softly in her earpiece. Overwatch, this is Alpha 6. What's your status up there? The voice belonged to Captain Jake Morrison, the company commander who had specifically requested Maria for this operation. She had earned a reputation throughout the battalion for her exceptional marksmanship and her ability to spot threats that others missed. Alpha 6, this is Overwatch. I have eyes on the pass. All clear for now, but I'm seeing some unusual bird activity in grid square 4, 7, 2. Something's got them spooked over there. Maria spoke in the calm, measured tone that had become her trademark during her 2 tours in Afghanistan. She had learned that panic was contagious over the radio, and keeping her voice steady helped everyone else stay focused. The bird activity wasn't much, just crows and ravens taking flight from a section of forest that should have been quiet at this time of morning. But Maria had been trained to notice everything, to treat every anomaly as a potential threat. Her instructors at sniper school had drilled into her that the difference between life and death often came down to spotting the one thing that didn't belong. She swept her scope slowly across the tree line again, looking for any sign of human presence. The magnification was powerful enough that she could see individual leaves moving in the breeze, but the dense vegetation made it difficult to spot anyone who might be hiding. Still, something felt wrong. After 18 months in this country, Maria had developed an almost supernatural ability to sense when the enemy was near. Overwatch, we're moving out in 10 minutes. Keep your eyes peeled. Captain Morrison's voice carried the weight of command, but Maria could hear the underlying tension. Everyone knew this valley had been the site of several ambushes over the past month. Intelligence suggested that a Taliban cell had been using the area to stage attacks on coalition forces moving between forward operating bases. Maria checked her equipment one more time. Her rifle was zeroed perfectly, the scope crystal clear, and she had enough ammunition to engage multiple targets if necessary. More importantly, she had positioned herself at an elevation that gave her overlapping fields of fire across the entire valley floor. If trouble came, she would be ready. The morning sun was beginning to burn off the mist when Alpha Company finally started their movement. Maria watched through her scope as 32 soldiers made their way down the mountain path toward the valley floor. They moved with the practiced caution of veterans, but the terrain forced them into a predictable route. The narrow pass between 2 steep ridgelines was the only practical way through this section of mountains, which also made it the perfect place for an ambush. Movement in the trees, Maria whispered into her radio. Grid 4, 7, 2, approximately 400 meters from the trail. I count at least 3 individuals moving through heavy cover. Her heart rate increased slightly, but her breathing remained controlled. She had been in this situation before, and training took over. The response came immediately. Overwatch, can you identify hostile intent? This was always the difficult moment. Rules of engagement required positive identification of enemy combatants before she could engage. Simply seeing people in the woods wasn't enough, even in a known hostile area. She needed to see weapons or observe an actual attack beginning. Maria kept her crosshairs trained on the area where she had spotted movement, waiting for a clearer picture. Alpha Company continued their advance, unaware of the potential threat developing in the forest above them. Maria tracked her scope back and forth between the moving soldiers and the suspicious activity in the trees. The tactical situation was developing rapidly, and she knew that seconds could make the difference between a successful mission and a catastrophe. Then she saw it. A brief glint of metal catching the morning sunlight, followed by the unmistakable outline of an AK-47 barrel protruding from behind a fallen log. The weapon was aimed directly at the trail where Alpha Company would pass in less than 5 minutes. Maria felt a familiar surge of adrenaline as her training kicked into high gear. Alpha 6, this is Overwatch. I have positive identification of at least one armed hostile in Grid 4. 7. 2. Weapons aimed at your route of advance. Recommend immediate halt and seek cover. The radio exploded with activity as Captain Morrison began issuing orders to his platoon leaders. Alpha Company stopped their advance and took defensive positions among the rocks scattered across the valley floor. Maria could see soldiers scanning the tree line with their rifle scopes, but from their position they couldn't see what she could see from her elevated perch. Overwatch. We need precise coordinates. Can you mark the target? Maria steadied her breathing and fine-tuned her scope's focus. The terrorist fighter had moved slightly, giving her a better view of his position. He appeared to be part of a larger group, at least 6 fighters spread across a 100-meter section of forest. They had chosen their position well, with good concealment and clear fields of fire across the valley trail. Alpha 6, I count 6 to 8 hostiles in a linear ambush position. Main concentration at Grid 4. Avantar 7. 5, 9, 1. They're approximately 50 meters above the trail, well concealed in heavy timber. I have clear shots on at least 3 positions. The silence on the radio stretched for several seconds while Captain Morrison made his decision. Maria knew he was weighing multiple factors: the safety of his soldiers, the rules of engagement, and the tactical situation. An attack on the ambush position could save lives, but it could also escalate the situation if her assessment was wrong. Overwatch, you are cleared to engage. Take out the ambush. Maria felt the familiar calm that always descended when she was about to take a shot. Her world narrowed to the view through her scope. Her breathing slowed to a steady rhythm, and her finger found the trigger. She selected her first target carefully, the fighter with the best position to engage Alpha Company. He was partially concealed behind the fallen log, but she could see enough of his torso to ensure a clean hit. The M24 bucked against her shoulder as she fired, the sound of the shot echoing across the valley. Through her scope, she watched the first target fall backward out of sight. Without hesitation, she worked the bolt action and acquired her second target, a fighter, who had begun moving to a new position after hearing the first shot. The second round found its mark as well, and Maria could see the remaining fighters beginning to realize they were under attack from an unexpected direction. Some began returning fire toward her position, but at over 600 meters range, their AK-47s were largely ineffective. Maria had the advantage of superior position, better equipment, and extensive training. She continued engaging targets methodically, each shot carefully aimed and delivered with precision. Her role wasn't just to eliminate threats, but to provide accurate intelligence to the ground commander about enemy movements and disposition. Between shots, she provided running commentary over the radio about what she was observing. Alpha 6, remaining hostiles are breaking contact to the north. I count 4 individuals moving through the trees toward Grid 4. 1. They appear to be withdrawing rather than reinforcing. The engagement lasted less than 10 minutes, but Maria knew it had probably saved several American lives. The ambush had been well planned and positioned, and Alpha Company would have walked directly into a devastating crossfire if she hadn't spotted the threat in time. Her elevated position and sharp eyes had given them the advantage they needed to turn the tables on their attackers. As the sound of gunfire faded across the valley, Maria continued monitoring the forest for any signs of additional threats. Her mission wasn't over just because the immediate danger had passed. Intelligence suggested this Taliban cell had been operating in the area for weeks, and there could be more fighters nearby ready to launch a follow-up attack. Overwatch, excellent work. Can you maintain Overwatch while we move through the pass? Affirmative, Alpha 6. I'll maintain eyes on until you're clear of the danger area. Maria settled back into her position, knowing she would remain motionless for several more hours while Alpha Company completed their mission. This was the unglamorous part of being a sniper. The long periods of waiting and watching that bracketed the brief moments of intense action. But she understood that her vigilance was what kept her fellow soldiers alive in this dangerous place. As Alpha Company resumed their movement through the valley, Maria reflected on the split-second decisions that had just unfolded. Her ability to spot the ambush before it was triggered had changed the entire outcome of the engagement. Instead of Alpha Company walking into a trap, they had been able to engage the enemy on favorable terms and continue their mission safely. The morning mist had completely burned off now, and Maria could see for miles across the rugged Afghan landscape. Somewhere out there, other American patrols were moving through equally dangerous terrain, depending on soldiers like her to watch over them and keep them safe. It was a responsibility she had never taken lightly, and one that had shaped every aspect of her military career. The radio brought her back to the immediate situation. Overwatch, we're approaching the northern exit of the pass. Any activity in our area? Maria swept her scope across the terrain ahead of Alpha Company, looking for any signs of additional threats. The valley exit was another natural choke point where an enemy could potentially stage another ambush, but her observation showed no signs of hostile activity. The rocky terrain was clear, and the ridgeline showed no movement other than the occasional bird or small animal. Alpha 6, your route is clear. I have good visibility on all potential threat areas, and nothing is moving. As Alpha Company disappeared over the northern ridge, Maria knew her job for this mission was nearly complete, but she would maintain her overwatch position for another hour, making sure no enemy fighters moved back into the area to potentially threaten other coalition forces that might use this route later in the day. 3 weeks after the Valley ambush, Maria found herself assigned to a different kind of mission. Forward Operating Base Chapman was preparing for a major operation to clear Taliban fighters from a series of villages in the Sangin district, and intelligence reports indicated that the enemy had been massing forces in the area. Maria's reputation for precision shooting and tactical awareness had earned her a spot on the advanced reconnaissance team. The mission briefing took place in a cramped tent that served as the battalion's tactical operations center. Maps covered every available wall space, marked with colored pins indicating known enemy positions, friendly forces, and areas of particular concern. Colonel Sarah Mitchell, the battalion commander, stood before a dozen soldiers representing the various specialties that would be needed for the operation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reliable intelligence that indicates a significant Taliban force has established defensive positions in 3 villages along this river valley. Colonel Mitchell pointed to a series of red circles on the largest map. Our mission is to conduct a deliberate clearance operation, but we need detailed reconnaissance before we commit our main force. Maria studied the terrain carefully as the colonel continued the briefing. The villages were positioned along a river that wound through relatively flat agricultural land, surrounded by low hills that offered excellent observation points for both friendly and enemy forces. The challenge would be getting close enough to gather detailed intelligence without alerting the Taliban to the impending operation. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, your team will establish an observation post on Hill 247, approximately 2 kilometers northeast of the primary objective. We need detailed information about enemy strength, weapons, defensive positions, and movement patterns. This intelligence will be critical for planning our assault routes and supporting fire positions. Maria nodded, already beginning to visualize the mission in her mind. Hill 247 was well positioned for observation, but it would also be exposed to enemy counter-surveillance efforts. Her team would need to move carefully and establish a concealed position that could remain undetected for up to 72 hours while they gathered the necessary intelligence. The reconnaissance team consisted of 4 soldiers, each bringing specialized skills to the mission. Besides Maria's sniper expertise, they had Sergeant Mike Chen, a communications specialist who could maintain contact with the main force while operating sophisticated surveillance equipment. Corporal Lisa Thompson brought expertise in battlefield intelligence analysis, able to assess enemy capabilities and intentions based on observed activities. Finally, Private First Class David Kim served as the team medic and also provided additional security for the observation post. They departed Forward Operating Base Chapman at midnight, using the cover of darkness to approach their objective area without being detected. The team moved on foot across difficult terrain, carrying enough equipment and supplies to sustain themselves for up to a week if necessary. Maria's sniper rifle was supplemented by high-powered spotting scopes, night vision equipment, and digital cameras capable of documenting enemy positions from extreme range. The approach to Hill 247 took 4 hours of careful movement through rocky terrain and dry stream beds. The team had to avoid several known enemy observation posts while navigating by compass and GPS in complete darkness. Maria led the way, using her infantry training to select routes that offered concealment while still allowing rapid movement toward their objective. As dawn broke over the valley, the team was already in position on Hill 247, concealed in a carefully constructed hide site among the rocks near the hilltop. From their position, they had clear observation across the entire valley, with excellent visibility of all 3 target villages. Maria set up her sniper rifle and spotting scope, while the rest of the team established their surveillance equipment and communication gear. Base, this is Recon 4. We are in position and beginning observation of the target area. Sergeant Chen's radio call confirmed that their communication link was functioning properly. The team would need to maintain regular contact with headquarters while avoiding transmissions that might be intercepted by enemy forces. Through her scope, Maria began a systematic observation of the first village. What she saw immediately confirmed that intelligence reports had been accurate. Taliban fighters were clearly visible moving between buildings, and she could see defensive positions that had been established at key locations around the village perimeter. More concerning was the evidence of heavy weapons, including what appeared to be recoilless rifles and heavy machine guns positioned to cover the main approaches. I count at least 20 fighters visible in the first village, Maria reported quietly to Corporal Thompson, who was documenting everything in a detailed intelligence report. They have established defensive positions on the north and east sides, with what looks like crew-served weapons in reinforced positions. The observation continued throughout the morning as the team built a comprehensive picture of enemy activities in the valley. The Taliban fighters appeared well organized and disciplined, suggesting they had received training from experienced commanders. Their defensive positions were well suited to take advantage of the terrain, and they had established interlocking fields of fire that would make any assault extremely difficult. Around midday, Maria noticed unusual activity in the second village. A convoy of vehicles had arrived and armed fighters were unloading what appeared to be additional supplies and equipment. Through her high-powered scope, she could see crates being carried into buildings, and several individuals who appeared to be giving orders to the other fighters. "We have new arrivals in Village 2, Maria whispered to her teammates. "Looks like a resupply operation, possibly bringing in additional leadership." She adjusted her scope's focus and began documenting the new arrivals with her digital camera, capturing images that could be analyzed later by intelligence specialists. The resupply operation confirmed that the Taliban was preparing for a major confrontation. The amount of material being unloaded suggested they were planning to defend their positions for an extended period, rather than conducting their typical hit-and-run tactics. This intelligence would be crucial for planning the coalition assault, as it indicated the enemy was prepared for a sustained battle. As afternoon progressed into evening, Maria continued her careful observation while the rest of her team rotated between surveillance duties and rest periods. The hide site had been constructed to allow continuous observation while keeping the team concealed from enemy view, but it required constant vigilance to avoid detection. Any reflection from their equipment or careless movement could reveal their position to enemy spotters. During the evening hours, Maria observed a meeting taking place in the central village. Through her scope, she could see approximately 15 individuals gathered around what appeared to be a map or planning document. The meeting lasted over an hour, and several participants appeared to be pointing toward different areas of the surrounding terrain. This suggested the Taliban commanders were conducting their own planning session, possibly in response to intelligence about the impending coalition operation. Base, this is Recon 4. We're observing what appears to be a leadership meeting in the central village. Recommend we extend our observation period to gather additional intelligence about enemy planning activities. Sergeant Chen's transmission was acknowledged immediately, with orders to continue surveillance as long as the tactical situation permitted. The second night in the observation post tested the team's endurance and discipline. They maintained watch schedules in 2-hour shifts, with one person on observation duty while the others rested. Maria found herself taking extra shifts, driven by the knowledge that her specialized training made her more capable of spotting subtle threats that others might miss. During her midnight observation period, Maria noticed movement in the darkness between the villages. Using her night vision equipment, she could see individuals moving along what appeared to be predetermined routes, suggesting the Taliban had established patrol patterns around their defensive positions. This intelligence would be valuable for planning infiltration routes during the main assault. Movement between villages, Maria whispered to Corporal Thompson during her teammate's shift. They're running regular patrols, approximately every 2 hours. Routes appear to follow the stream bed and the tree line along the eastern edge of the valley. The patrol observation revealed another layer of the Taliban defensive plan. They weren't simply occupying static positions within the villages, but had established a security perimeter that would provide early warning of any approaching coalition forces. Breaking through this perimeter undetected would require careful timing and coordination. Dawn of the third day brought new challenges. Maria noticed increased activity around all 3 villages, with fighters moving between positions and additional defensive preparations taking place. More concerning was the arrival of another convoy, this one carrying what appeared to be mortar tubes and associated equipment. The Taliban was significantly strengthening their defensive capabilities. "Base, we have a problem," Maria reported through Sergeant Chen's radio. "Enemy is receiving additional heavy weapons, including indirect fire capabilities. The tactical situation has changed significantly since yesterday." The response from headquarters was immediate. Intelligence analysts needed detailed information about the new weapons positions and capabilities before the main assault could proceed. Maria's team would need to extend their observation period and gather specific intelligence about the mortar positions, including precise coordinates for targeting by coalition artillery. Through careful observation over the following hours, Maria was able to identify 3 separate mortar positions, each carefully concealed but positioned to provide supporting fire across the entire valley. The Taliban had clearly invested significant effort in preparing their defensive positions, and the arrival of indirect fire weapons changed the tactical equation considerably. Mortar Position 1 is located in Grid Square 457. 7. 2. 1. 8. Maria reported as she worked with Corporal Thompson to develop precise coordinates for each position. Estimated crew of 4 personnel with approximately 20 rounds visible near the position. The intelligence gathering mission was revealing that the Taliban had prepared for a much larger battle than originally anticipated. Instead of a simple village clearance operation, coalition forces would be facing a well-prepared enemy with significant defensive capabilities and the will to fight from prepared positions. As the third day continued, Maria began noticing signs that suggested the enemy might be aware of coalition surveillance activities, increased patrol frequency, additional sentries, and what appeared to be counter-surveillance measures all indicated that Taliban leaders suspected they were being watched. The team's mission was becoming more dangerous with each passing hour. "We may have been compromised," Maria warned her teammates during their afternoon briefing session. "Enemy activity patterns suggest they're looking for observation posts. We need to be prepared for contact." The warning proved prophetic when, just before sunset, Maria spotted a Taliban patrol moving directly toward Hill 247. The 8-man patrol was armed with assault rifles and appeared to be conducting a deliberate search of potential observation positions. They were still over a kilometer away, but their route would bring them dangerously close to the team's concealed position. The Taliban patrol moved with purpose across the valley floor, their route taking them steadily toward Hill 247. Maria tracked their progress through her scope while the rest of her team prepared for potential contact. The 4-person reconnaissance team was significantly outnumbered, but their elevated position and superior equipment gave them tactical advantages if a firefight developed. 8 personnel, Alaska 47s, moving in tactical formation, Maria whispered into her radio headset. Distance approximately 800 meters and closing. They appear to be conducting a deliberate search pattern. Sergeant Chen was already transmitting a situation report to headquarters, while Corporal Thompson and Private Kim prepared their weapons and reviewed escape routes from their position. The team had planned for this contingency during their mission briefing, but facing the reality of potential combat against superior numbers tested everyone's nerves. Maria made a tactical decision that would prove critical in the coming engagement. Instead of waiting for the patrol to discover their position, she decided to engage them at maximum range while they were still in the open. Her M24 sniper rifle was effective at distances far beyond the range of the enemy's assault rifles, giving her team a significant advantage if she could exploit it properly. "I'm taking the shot," Maria announced quietly. Target is the patrol leader, front and center of their formation. She had identified the patrol leader by his position and the way other fighters responded to his hand signals. Eliminating him first would disrupt their coordination and potentially cause confusion among the remaining fighters. Maria steadied her breathing and lined up her crosshairs on the target, calculating for wind and distance. The shot echoed across the valley as Maria's rifle found its mark. The patrol leader dropped immediately, and the remaining fighters scattered for cover among the rocks and sparse vegetation. But their concealment was inadequate against Maria's elevated position and high-powered scope. She could still see most of the patrol members, and they were trapped in relatively open ground. "Contact! Contact!" Sergeant Chen transmitted to headquarters while Maria worked her bolt action and acquired her second target. Recon 4 is engaged with enemy patrol at grid 4, 5, 7, 2, 1. 8 hostiles we are engaging from Overwatch position. Maria's second shot eliminated another Taliban fighter who had been trying to coordinate the patrol's response to her attack. The remaining 6 fighters began returning fire toward Hill 247, but at over 600 meters range, their weapons were largely ineffective. Their muzzle flashes and the sound of their shots revealed their positions to Maria, making them easier targets for her precision fire. The engagement developed into a deadly game of cat and mouse, with Maria methodically engaging targets while the Taliban fighters tried desperately to find cover and return effective fire. Her teammates provided security and support, watching for additional threats while Maria focused on eliminating the immediate danger. "Third target down," Maria reported as another fighter fell to her precise shooting. Remaining hostiles are seeking cover in that rocky area at grid 4, 5, 7, 3, 1, 9. The surviving Taliban fighters had found better concealment among a cluster of large boulders, but their position was now known, and they were effectively pinned down. Maria could see movement between the rocks as they tried to maneuver for better positions, but every time one of them exposed himself, her rifle was ready to engage. Private Kim, monitoring the radio frequencies, intercepted Taliban communications indicating that the pinned patrol was calling for reinforcements. Intelligence analysts had provided the reconnaissance team with captured enemy radio equipment that allowed them to monitor Taliban transmissions, giving them advance warning of developing threats. "Maria, they're calling for backup," Kim reported urgently. "Sounds like they're requesting mortar support on our position." The tactical situation had suddenly become much more dangerous. While Maria could continue engaging the pinned patrol with her rifle, mortar fire could force the team to abandon their carefully prepared position and lose the intelligence-gathering capability that was so important to the upcoming coalition operation. Maria made another crucial decision. Instead of withdrawing, she chose to accelerate her engagement with the surviving patrol members, attempting to eliminate the threat before reinforcements could arrive or mortar fire could be brought to bear on their position. This decision required her to expose herself to greater risk, but it offered the best chance of completing their mission successfully. "Cover me!" Maria instructed her teammates as she shifted to a more aggressive firing position that offered better angles on the Taliban fighters hiding in the rocks. "I'm going to finish this quickly before their friends show up." The next several minutes tested all of Maria's training and combat experience. She engaged targets rapidly but precisely, using her superior marksmanship to eliminate Taliban fighters who were trying to escape from their rocky hiding place. Each shot had to count, as ammunition was limited, and the enemy would soon receive reinforcements that could overwhelm her small team. Her fourth and fifth shots found their targets within 30 seconds of each other, as 2 fighters attempted to bound between rock formations. Maria's ability to track moving targets and deliver accurate fire under pressure demonstrated why she had been selected for this critical mission. Her precision shooting was keeping her entire team alive while maintaining their intelligence-gathering capability. 2 hostiles remaining, Maria reported as she searched for the survivors through her scope. "They're well concealed, but I can see movement in the rocks." The surviving Taliban fighters had gone to ground among the boulders, making themselves difficult targets but also limiting their ability to maneuver or call for help. Maria patiently waited for them to reveal themselves, knowing that time was working against her team, but unwilling to waste ammunition on shots that wouldn't eliminate the threat. Her patience was rewarded when one of the fighters attempted to use his radio to coordinate with the reinforcements that were reportedly en route to their location. The brief exposure as he raised the radio antenna above the rocks was enough for Maria to line up her shot and eliminate the sixth member of the patrol. 6 down, 1 remaining, she announced to her teammates. Last hostile is still in the rocks, but he's effectively neutralized unless he gets support. The sound of vehicles approaching from the direction of the villages indicated that Taliban reinforcements were indeed responding to the patrol's distress call. Maria could see dust clouds in the distance, suggesting at least 2 vehicles carrying additional fighters who would soon arrive at the engagement area. Sergeant Chen was coordinating with headquarters for emergency extraction or fire support, but the team's remote location made immediate assistance difficult. They would need to deal with the developing threat using their own resources and tactical skills. Vehicles inbound from the south, Corporal Thompson reported while scanning the valley through binoculars. Looks like 2 pickup trucks, probably 8 to 12 additional personnel. Maria realized that her team's position was about to become untenable. While they had successfully eliminated most of the original patrol, the arrival of reinforcements would shift the tactical balance against them. Her team needed to either withdraw immediately or take action to prevent the reinforcements from reaching their position. She made a decision that demonstrated both tactical innovation and personal courage. Instead of withdrawing, Maria chose to engage the approaching vehicles with her sniper rifle, attempting to disable them before they could deploy their passengers. While her rifle wasn't designed for anti-vehicle use, precise shots at critical components might be enough to stop the trucks. "I'm engaging the vehicles," Maria announced to her team. Target is the lead truck's engine compartment. Her shot at the lead vehicle struck the radiator, causing steam to pour from under the hood and forcing the truck to stop approximately 400 meters from the engagement area. The passengers immediately dismounted and began moving toward Hill 247 on foot, but they were now in the open and vulnerable to Maria's precision fire. The second vehicle had stopped when the first was disabled, and its occupants also dismounted to avoid presenting a concentrated target. However, their hasty dismount left them exposed in open ground, where Maria could engage them effectively with her rifle. Multiple targets dismounted from vehicles, Maria reported as she began engaging the reinforcement force. Range approximately 400 meters. Targets are in the open. The engagement with the reinforcements became the most intense firefight of Maria's military career. She was engaging multiple targets at medium range while under return fire from assault rifles and light machine guns. Her elevated position provided some protection, but the increased volume of enemy fire made her position increasingly dangerous. Her teammates provided crucial support during this phase of the battle. Private Kim used his rifle to engage targets that Maria couldn't immediately address, while Sergeant Chen coordinated fire support requests with headquarters. Corporal Thompson continued gathering intelligence about enemy reinforcement activities in the villages, maintaining their primary mission even while under heavy fire. Maria's methodical shooting began taking its toll on the Taliban reinforcements. Her ability to deliver precise fire while under pressure forced the enemy fighters to seek cover, limiting their ability to maneuver effectively. Several fighters attempted to flank Hill 247 by moving through dead ground, but Maria's elevated position allowed her to spot and engage these movements. Flanking movement stopped, Maria reported after eliminating 2 fighters who had been attempting to approach their position from the eastern side. Remaining hostiles are pinned down in the open ground south of our position. The tactical situation was reaching a critical point. While Maria's team had successfully defended their position and eliminated most of the immediate threats, ammunition was running low, and enemy reinforcements from the other villages could arrive at any time. The team needed to either complete their extraction or receive immediate support from coalition forces. Relief came in the form of attack helicopters that had been diverted from another mission to provide fire support for the embattled reconnaissance team. The arrival of aerial support immediately changed the tactical dynamics, as the remaining Taliban fighters found themselves caught in open ground with no protection against helicopter-mounted weapons. Recon 4, this is Reaper 1-6. We have eyes on your position and multiple hostiles in the open. We are cleared hot for engagement. The helicopter attack eliminated the remaining Taliban fighters within minutes, allowing Maria's team to maintain their observation position and continue gathering critical intelligence for the upcoming coalition operation. The successful defense of Hill 247 had preserved not only their lives but also the mission that could save many coalition soldiers in the days ahead. The helicopter attack had eliminated the immediate threat to Maria's reconnaissance team, but the firefight had fundamentally changed their mission parameters. The Taliban now knew that coalition forces were conducting surveillance of their positions, which meant enemy defensive preparations would intensify rapidly. Maria's team had perhaps 12 hours before their intelligence became outdated due to enemy countermeasures. Recon 4, this is base. We're accelerating the operation timeline based on your contact report. We need final intelligence assessments within 6 hours for immediate planning purposes. The radio transmission from headquarters confirmed what Maria already suspected. Their successful defense had forced commanders to launch the main assault earlier than originally planned. Maria immediately refocused on intelligence gathering, knowing that every detail she could provide might save lives during the upcoming assault. Through her scope, she could already see increased activity in all 3 villages as Taliban fighters began repositioning equipment and reinforcing their defensive positions. The enemy was clearly preparing for the battle they now knew was coming. Enhanced defensive activity in all 3 villages. Maria reported to Corporal Thompson, who was updating their intelligence assessment in real time. They're moving the mortars to new positions and establishing additional fighting positions around the village perimeters. The next several hours required intense concentration as Maria documented every aspect of Taliban defensive preparations. Her ability to spot and identify enemy equipment and personnel from extreme range provided intelligence that no other coalition asset could gather. Satellite imagery couldn't penetrate the vegetation cover, and closer reconnaissance would be impossible given the heightened enemy alert status. Through careful observation, Maria identified 17 separate defensive positions that had been established since the firefight. The Taliban was clearly following a deliberate defensive plan, with interlocking fields of fire and carefully positioned crew-served weapons. More concerning was evidence that they were prepared to fight from multiple fallback positions if their initial defenses were penetrated. New observation, Maria whispered to her teammates. They're establishing fighting positions in depth, not just perimeter defenses. This is going to be a tough fight even with all our intelligence. As evening approached, Maria noticed unusual activity around the central village that suggested the Taliban might be planning their own offensive action. Fighters were gathering in a large building, and equipment was being prepared that looked like it was intended for movement rather than static defense. The enemy might be planning a preemptive attack on coalition staging areas. Base, this is Recon 4. We're observing what appears to be offensive preparations in the central village. Recommend immediate assessment of force protection at friendly positions. Maria's warning prompted an immediate increase in security at Forward Operating Base Chapman and other coalition installations in the area. The intelligence proved accurate when Taliban forces launched a diversionary attack against a coalition checkpoint approximately 10 kilometers from the main villages. While the attack was unsuccessful, it demonstrated that enemy commanders were thinking tactically and attempting to disrupt coalition preparations for the main assault. During the night hours, Maria continued her observation using night vision equipment, while her teammates maintained communication with headquarters and prepared detailed intelligence reports. The psychological stress of continuous surveillance under combat conditions was beginning to affect the entire team, but their mission was too important to allow fatigue to compromise their performance. Movement in Village 2, Maria reported during her midnight watch. Large group of personnel moving equipment between buildings. Can't identify specific items due to darkness, but significant activity level. The night observations revealed that Taliban forces were conducting their own preparations for the coming battle. Supply operations, personnel movements, and equipment repositioning continued throughout the night, suggesting that enemy commanders were committed to defending their positions despite knowing they would face overwhelming coalition firepower. Dawn brought the beginning of the coalition assault. Maria's team would maintain their observation position to provide real-time intelligence and target identification for attacking forces. Her role would shift from pure reconnaissance to combat support, using her precision marksmanship to engage high-value targets and provide overwatch for advancing coalition soldiers. Hunter Main. This is Recon 4. We have eyes on all objective areas and are prepared to provide target identification and precision fires. Maria's radio call confirmed that her team was ready to support the assault that would begin within the hour. The main assault force consisted of 2 reinforced companies supported by armor and artillery. Maria watched through her scope as coalition vehicles moved into attack positions, while Apache helicopters provided overhead security. The Taliban defenders responded by manning their prepared positions and beginning sporadic fire at the advancing coalition forces. Multiple muzzle flashes from defensive position 7, Maria reported as she identified Taliban firing positions for coalition commanders. Grid coordinates 4, 5, 7, 2, 3, 7, approximately 4 personnel with automatic weapons. Her ability to spot and identify specific threats from her elevated observation post proved invaluable as the battle developed. Coalition forces used her target identification to direct both artillery fire and airstrikes against Taliban positions, significantly reducing the effectiveness of enemy defensive fire. Maria's most critical contribution came when she identified a Taliban mortar position that was preparing to engage advancing coalition infantry. The mortar crew was well concealed among buildings in the central village, invisible to ground forces, but clearly visible to Maria's elevated observation point. Priority target, Maria transmitted urgently. Mortar position preparing to fire at advancing friendlies. Grid 4, 5, 7, 2, 2, 8, immediate suppression required. She followed up her radio call by engaging the mortar position directly with her sniper rifle. Her first shot eliminated the gunner who was preparing to drop a round into the tube, while her second shot disabled the assistant gunner who was attempting to continue the fire mission. The precise elimination of the mortar crew prevented what could have been devastating casualties among coalition infantry. The battle continued for several hours as coalition forces methodically cleared each village, while Maria provided continuous overwatch and intelligence. Her accurate target identification and precision shooting eliminated multiple high-value targets while protecting advancing soldiers from concealed threats. Sniper in Building 4, Maria reported while engaging a Taliban marksman who had been targeting coalition squad leaders. Threat eliminated. Advance can continue. Her role evolved throughout the battle from observer to active combatant, but always with the primary mission of protecting coalition forces and ensuring mission success. Every shot she fired was carefully considered and precisely delivered, maximizing the impact of her limited ammunition supply. As the assault reached its climax in the central village, Maria identified a group of Taliban fighters who appeared to be foreign advisors based on their equipment and tactical behavior. These individuals were directing defensive operations and appeared to be the senior leadership that intelligence had been seeking throughout the campaign. High-value targets in Building 12, Maria reported while tracking the group through her scope, appears to be senior leadership based on their activities and equipment. She engaged the group with rapid but precise fire, eliminating 3 individuals who had been coordinating Taliban defensive activities. The loss of senior leadership caused visible confusion among the remaining defenders, contributing to the rapid collapse of organized resistance in the final objective area. The successful completion of the village clearance operation validated the importance of Maria's reconnaissance mission and her team's sacrifice under fire. Intelligence gathered from their observation post had enabled coalition forces to attack with precise knowledge of enemy capabilities and positions, significantly reducing casualties while ensuring mission success. Mission complete. Maria transmitted as the last Taliban resistance was eliminated from the village areas. All objectives secured. Remaining hostile forces are fleeing to the north. Her final contribution to the operation came as she continued tracking fleeing Taliban fighters, providing information that enabled helicopter units to intercept and capture several high-value individuals who might otherwise have escaped to fight another day. As coalition forces consolidated their positions in the captured villages, Maria reflected on the critical role that precision observation and marksmanship had played in the mission's success. Her ability to spot threats before they could engage friendly forces had saved numerous lives, while her precise shooting had eliminated key targets that could have significantly complicated the assault. The reconnaissance mission had evolved into direct combat support, demonstrating the flexibility and adaptability that characterized successful special operations. Maria's team had gathered crucial intelligence, defended their position against superior numbers, and provided precision fires that contributed directly to mission success. Recon 4. Outstanding work. Your intelligence and precision fires were critical to mission success. Prepare for extraction to forward operating base. The transmission from headquarters confirmed what Maria already knew. Their mission had been successful in every important aspect. As helicopters arrived to extract her team from Hill 247, Maria took one final look at the valley, where so much had transpired over the past 4 days. The villages that had been Taliban strongholds were now under coalition control. Supply routes that had been threatened were now secure. And intelligence gathered during the mission would support future operations throughout the region. The extraction flight gave Maria time to process the intensity of the mission and her role in its success. Her precision shooting had eliminated over 20 enemy fighters during multiple engagements, while her intelligence gathering had provided the foundation for successful coalition operations. More importantly, her vigilance and marksmanship had kept her teammates alive and allowed them to complete their critical mission. Back at Forward Operating Base Chapman, Maria participated in detailed debriefings that would help improve future operations and provide lessons learned for other units facing similar challenges. Her experiences during the reconnaissance mission and subsequent battle would be studied and incorporated into training programs for other soldiers. The mission's success demonstrated the continued importance of individual marksmanship and tactical skills in modern warfare. Even in an era of advanced technology and precision munitions, Maria's ability to observe, analyze, and engage targets with her rifle had proven as valuable as any high-tech surveillance system or smart bomb. As she cleaned and maintained her equipment after the mission, Maria knew that her service in Afghanistan was contributing to something larger than herself. Every successful mission brought coalition forces closer to their strategic objectives while protecting the lives of soldiers who depended on specialists like her to watch over them in dangerous places. The Valley engagement had tested every aspect of her training and personal courage, but it had also confirmed her effectiveness as both a soldier and a leader. Her decisions under pressure had repeatedly proven correct, her marksmanship had been precise when lives depended on it, and her tactical judgment had enabled mission success against significant odds.